Welcome back. I tried that thing again where I recorded the video first and then came back to do the introduction. So I can say with confidence that the puzzle session that you're about to watch went pretty well for me. Didn't go perfectly, but I think I did okay. And at the very end, I had some thoughts pop into my head, so I just talked about that for a minute or two, which if you're curious about how I'm studying chess and how much time I'm spending on it, that sort of thing, that's after the puzzle solving. So let's go. All right, my current puzzle rating is 2239. I am playing with the black pieces. It's almost checkmate here, but the king has one square to get out. So I am wondering if the answer isn't to move my king over one, or here, one of those two squares, and then to check. The problem, I think, with this one is that I could be checked from there, or here. So what about this square? Can the opponent do anything if I move to f2? What can they do? They can't check me with the rook at that point. They can take a pawn. They can try to get the rook in a place where they could interpose, or they could move this pawn. I think if the opponent moves the h-pawn, I think I could sidestep here and then be in a position to checkmate. I do believe that if I move my king to f2, that their best move, because they won't be able to move their king then, both these squares will be covered by my king, and I'll be preparing to checkmate with my rook. So I think their only recourse at that point would be to move that pawn to h3. But then my king wouldn't be covering h2, so they would have an escape square. So at that point, I think I would have to move my king to g3. From there, my king would cover both of those squares, and I would be preparing to checkmate. And I don't think they have anything to stop that. Neither of their pawns are close to promotion, and their rook is not in a good place to get in front of my rook. So I'm going to try king to f2. And then here, it has to be this, and they cannot check me from there either. Okay, and then I check and check. Let's go to the next puzzle. I do have a couple of checks. I have a check with my queen down here. I have a check here, but that one looks like it just loses my queen for a knight. I also have a check here, but that looks like it loses my rook one of two ways. Do I have any other checks? I don't see any other checks. My pawn's in the way of this check. I do notice that the knight is pinned. Okay, so if I did this check, they couldn't take back with the knight. They would have to take back with the king. That's interesting. And if they did take back with the king, then I would have this check here on d5, but then they could just go back or get out of check a number of other ways. So this looks like the best check. What recourse does the opponent have in that case? In that case, the knight wouldn't be pinned anymore. So they could block with the knight, but my rook and queen would be pointed at that square, so I could check again, winning the knight. However, they don't have to block with the knight. They wouldn't want to block with the rook, because I would just take it, right? They could move out of check if they didn't block with the knight. Let's see. It's not just checks. Checks is just something that I look for in my checklist, but I'm trying to see the key idea in this position. I think one of the key ideas here is that this rook is hanging right now. The rook is not defended. And because my rook cuts off this entire file here, the king couldn't move forward to protect the rook. So I think that might be the answer. Queen to b7 check. Again, if they do block with the knight, I take it, it's still check, and the rook is still hanging. The only problem with that, I was going to say the only problem with that is that they would have a back rank mate, but they don't because my rook is down here. So let's follow this out. What do? They have multiple possible moves. I don't think they would block with the rook because I would just take it. They block with the knight. I take it, and I'm still aiming at the rook. They could move out of check. They can't move out of check to one of those two places because of my rook, right? So they can't guard their rook that way. If they moved out of check to the back rank, one of those two squares, then I would take their rook, and it would still be check. So they could also move out of check to one of these two squares. And if it was e6, I would take their rook, and it would be check. So my guess is then that they're going to move to f6, and I still win the rook. It looks like I win the rook either way. And I'm not yet in danger of being checkmated because their queen isn't pointed at my rook just yet. It's off one diagonal from that. There's no safe checkmates here. They can check me. Okay, now that's interesting. They can check me with the knight, and that pawn is pinned. So maybe that's something I need to be worried about, or at least notice. Let's see. Check. They move out of check here, and I take the rook. Then they could check me there, so I wouldn't be able to take the knight. I would just have to move. And if I moved this way, they would check me over there on h2, removing a pawn. So I think in that case, I would have to move to h1. Okay, I'm going to try it. Oh, they did block with the rook. Then I should take the rook, right? Okay, I overthought that a little bit more than it needed to be thought, but I was a little worried about this check and then the fact that I would possibly move the wrong way and then they would check me again, but it was just winning a rook. Next puzzle. Was that my dark squared bishop? I think it was. I do not have any checks here, so this is not a check or a checkmating puzzle, I don't think. Their king is relatively safe, and it looks like I should just win this rook, one of two ways. But if I do, there's also the bishop that's hanging, and this pawn right now is being hit by two of their pieces. Their knight and their bishop are both pointed at d4. So should I take their bishop? They take back. Then I would take their queen, I assume, and then if they took my queen, then I would take this? Okay, so what if I take their bishop, and then they move their rook out of danger here? They just bring their rook back. Then is that it? Okay, but what if I take this? They take here? Not yet, because I have two pieces guarding that square. Okay, but the rook is the more valuable piece overall. Also, the rook's the only thing guarding that pawn. So once I take that rook, this pawn is hanging two different ways. Okay, but one of these moves, either taking the rook or it's got to be one of those two, right? Taking the rook or taking the bishop, or possibly advancing this pawn, which would be a fork of those two pieces. Those are my three candidate moves right now because I don't have any checks. I do have two captures, and I have a threat, which would be threatening both of those, only one of which could survive. If I move this pawn, that does allow the bishop access into here, like right there. That's probably not good, because that square is protected by their rook. Yeah, so I'm going to discount the pawn fork, even though it is threatening to win one of those two pieces. I think their bishop comes in here to f2, protected by their rook. And I wouldn't want to move in front of the rook, so I would have to move out here, and then they could press this pawn forward, and I would have to run with my king. So I don't think it's the pawn fork. I don't think it's pawn to d5. Back to the original two, capturing one of these two pieces. And I'm going to say it's got to be the rook. Again, I might be overthinking this, but if I take the rook, it could take here, but I would take back. If they took back, I would win that piece, right? Okay. Okay, it was taking the rook. This knight got out of, okay. Now that that's not pointed over here where it was pointed anymore, in fact, it's pointed at a piece that is defended, now I think it's the pawn fork. Okay, so now I take this, because I can't take that. And I wouldn't want to do this, because then they just take it. They're pointed at my rook, and that piece is pinned. So I think I just take the knight. I'm not sure that I could go ahead to win this game, because their queen's probably going to take this pawn or move out of the way in some fashion, and this piece is pinned. I could still end up losing this game, but I am glad that I got the puzzle right just by process of elimination. Next puzzle. Okay, their king has moved out of check, but it's moved the wrong way, I'm pretty sure. I ran into this in one of my games recently. Also, we know that puzzles start with the other player giving you an advantage in some way. It probably should have gone there to get out of check, or possibly blocked, although I have a pawn, so it probably shouldn't have blocked there. But I'm guessing it should have moved out of check a different way. Well, now I have a hanging knight. Let's see, if I take the knight, they can push this pawn forward and win my rook. With promotion, threatening really bad stuff here. I do have a check, but they can block that check with this pawn. Wait, if they do that, I would have en passant, and that would be check again that they couldn't block. So I think it's actually this. I don't think it's obviously not taking the pawn, right? I could take the pawn this way, but I don't think that's it. I think it's check, and that is actually queen to b3 is the move that I missed in a game that I analyzed recently, one of my own rapid games, except my queen was down here, but it had to go to b3 because the king went that way instead of the other way. Should I have taken the bishop? Oh, wow. So I'm just leaving the lines on, but what I should have played was queen to b3 check. But wouldn't they have blocked with the bishop? Oh no, they wouldn't have blocked with the bishop, because my knight's defending that square. That might be it. I'm glad I had that game and analyzed it. But I think they can't block with the dark squared bishop, because that's a light square diagonal. Their knight can't get to any of those light squares to block, and they haven't developed any of the other pieces. So the only way that they can block is by throwing forward that pawn. I would use en passant, clearing that diagonal. They would be in check, but then they would block with the bishop. That's their only legal move, and then I would take the bishop, and I think that would be mate. That was checkmate. Next puzzle. My king is vulnerable, but they don't yet have quite enough pieces aiming right here. The bishop isn't quite aiming at the exact square that it needs to, and they don't have a dark squared bishop to aim here. But I'm guessing that my opponent is planning something here. It's not quite going to work, though, because my queen is guarding that square. What do I have? Do I have any checks? I do not have a check because my queen can't get there just yet. I don't have a light squared bishop, so I can't check on that diagonal. One thing that I could do is threaten the queen, but That still doesn't clear up my queen for the check on that light square. I can throw this pawn forward, which will discourage that bishop from remaining where it is, but that still doesn't clear my queen for the check on the diagonal because my pawn would be in the way. We determined I don't have any checks in this position, and I don't have any captures in this position. All I have is threats, so I'm looking for threats. If I move my rook to d7, that's a threat because it is pointing the rook and the bishop at that square, which currently only their king and queen are guarding. Once my rook's out of the way, then my bishop could see that square. In addition, that would be allowing my queen to get to d5, which would be a check if the king didn't move. So the question then is, what do they do? Oh, that's a bad idea because their bishop is pointed at that square. I thought through that way too long before noticing that their bishop could take there. What else is there? Again, there is this threat with the rook. All that does is point at these two pieces. It does clear the bishop out to aim at the g7 square, but that's not a check for one thing, and there's nothing else protecting that. So I'm back to these two. I don't see anything else. Other than maybe, I don't know if it's a good idea, but maybe in a game I would be tempted to put my queen on f3, which would block that pawn's path from coming forward, and it would help protect both of those pawns, my e pawn and my g pawn. And that's another thing. If I move this rook forward, then nothing's guarding this pawn. Although I don't know that they would want to take there, given that both their rooks are currently guarding the back rank, and then that would allow me to check. Oh, but that's guarded twice, so maybe not. Okay, so they might take this pawn, and then they're legitimately threatening a checkmate at that point. But no, if they take the pawn, I would take the queen, because I also have two pieces protecting my back rank. Okay, so let's assume they would move the queen then. Where would they move it? Not here, because I would take with my queen. Possibly to h4. But yeah, I'm assuming they wouldn't move to h5 or g4 because of my queen on that diagonal. I don't think they would take the rook, but they could move to h4, they could move back to g6, or they could come back anywhere along, not there probably, because the rook is still on that rank, or on that file, I'm sorry. So they have lots of safe squares where they could move the queen. And then I'm still not threatening a check. And I don't know if I want to trade. Yeah, I don't think I would mind trading my rook for the bishop. I don't know. Well, especially if they moved their queen there, right? If I went here and they went there and then I took the bishop, their queen would be hanging. But their queen would also be pointed at this undefended bishop. So that, yeah. Okay, this one's tough. This one's tough. What about pawn to c4? That threatens the bishop. It's protected by the rook, so the bishop would probably want to move. Okay. It wouldn't want to move here because my queen, as mentioned, is guarding that diagonal. So if I play c4, the bishop could come back here. And then the opponent would have two attackers on this pawn. And their bishop would be lined up here where their queen. I don't know that I want to force their bishop to get on that diagonal where it would be pointed right here. Even though this pawn's still in the way, because that pawn's going to fall, and soon. Well, I got, two or three in a row, but this one is got me stuck. What about moving the bishop down to c1, where it would point at that queen through this pawn, so it would effectively pin that pawn? Okay, let me try this rook thing again, because the bishop to c1 idea is just silly. If I do this, that's a direct threat on the queen. It needs to move somewhere. I'm guessing it's going to go there. But then what do I do? Because I don't think I want to take the bishop at that point. If I take there, they take there, and then I guess I could check here with my queen and win the rook. I'm going to try it. Wow, I spent a lot of time on that, and that was the right move, and the queen went where I thought it would. So does that mean that I should now take the bishop? Go down the exchange just temporarily? Because that's the only reason I decided to go with this. Well, also because I was running out of patience. But I decided to go with this solution or this threat because if I take here, if they take back, I win this rook, and I'm threatening that rook from there. So I think that rook would take, and then I could check here and threatening to win that rook back. That seems overly complicated, but that's what I'm going to try. Oh, it just stopped there. Wow. Well, I'm curious if an opponent was in this position, what would their best move be? Let's go to the analysis board, and the opponent played there, which gave me the advantage. Only if I play rook to d5 and queen to g6, stockfish, or e7. Either one of those keeps it at +3. Well, they played there. And now my only move that maintains an advantage is taking the bishop. Now, I think the reason that the puzzle stopped here must be because this is their best move now. It's not taking back the rook. It says if they take there, then I would bring my rook back. And then I'm just up a piece, right? Let's see. So if they did take there, I'm guessing that I have a couple of different moves that work. And that's, yeah, I have a bunch of moves that are plus 3.5 or very close to 3.5. And that's why it didn't work, because rook to g5 is good, because I assume because the bishop and the rook would both be pointed there. Rook to d5 is good. And even rook to c5 is fine. Although I don't like c5 because it's kind of sitting there, not protected by anything. That's why the puzzle stopped, because the next move, I didn't have a clear winner among my moves. Well, I am surprised that I got that one. Okay, next. Well, I'm in check, so I have to move, because that's how check works. Okay, well, I have two choices. I have three choices. I have three legal moves here. One is taking the knight. One is moving my king forward, and one is moving my king backward. I can't move my king to g8 because the knight currently guards that square. I'm pretty sure if I move backward, that their queen's going to come in right here, and that's checkmate. I don't think I can't block that checkmate. Now, again, I can't move out because their knight's guarding that square. If I move forward, I think the queen's coming right here, and that's checkmate because the knight's guarding the queen there, and I would just be stuck. So that leaves only one option, to take the knight. Okay, now I have only one option again. Otherwise, the puzzle wouldn't have continued. I know that my knight is pinned because the bishop is there. I can't move the knight, so I know that's not the move. I also know that this might be coming, and if it does, I'll have to come down here. Is there any way I can stop that? Can I come down here now and unpin my knight? Also, I'm not worried about this, right? I don't think I'm worried about that. What do I have? Oh, I have a free pawn. Surely that's not it. And then also I would be aiming at the other pawn from there. Wait, if that, no. I can tell you why that's not it. Because this, and when I take, that's check, and when I take back the bishop either way, my queen's hanging. So, okay, so it's not that. I almost did that. And again, can't move the knight, can't move this pawn, can't move that pawn. Should I move my king? Because am I worried about this check? I come down, I have to get out of check to g8, and then they take this, and I take that, and they take this. I surely wouldn't have an advantage there, so maybe I need to move my king first, so that that's not a check. But that could still happen. But then my pawn would be guarding h5. I could threaten the queen, but that just encourages it to come down here. I'm going to move my king to g8. I hope that's not wrong. It was wrong. Okay, what was it? We'll find out. Well, hint, it was putting the rook over there. And then they're going to check anyway, even though I'm just going to move out of check. Well, I only had one legal move there. Okay, so that was a mistake. What should they have done? Okay, we were about even. It says they should have put it back here. Wait, what? Knight, that's f4, right? Why would, oh, because my knight's pinned. Okay, they should have put it back there, but instead they went in here and checked, which allows me to take with the pawn. Yeah, see, it shows three legal moves, and I determined that either one of those would be mate once the queen came down, so that had to be it. That there was no question on that one. But here there is a question. It says that their best move by far is to take back, which is what they did. And I only have one move that works here. If I take that, which is my third best move, oh, it says they wouldn't do the trick that I said. Well, it was the trick that convinced me not to do it. Because remember I said they would go here and I had to deal with the check and then they would win my undefended queen. But it says if I take that, they wouldn't care. They would still go queen to h5 check, which would force me here. I would have no choice. Then they would take here. And when I took back, they would take back. Yeah, okay. Well, I knew it wasn't that, but how was I supposed to know it was this? Oh, king to h6 is better than what I did. Wow. That's my second best moves, king to h6, to, I guess, protect against that check with my king. But I came back here, and that made it mate in 6. Okay, because the queen's coming here. But see, that's not check now, so I have a whole nother turn. And now my best move is that, but they have a mate in 5. I'm curious, where's this mate in 5? They're going to take this. I'm going to take, oh no, it's not my best move to take there. My best move is to go here and distract the queen. And they're not going to care about that. They're going to check me. And I have to take it. And then they're going to take my queen. Wait, that's not mate. It said they had a mate in 5. Go back. What? Mate in 4. It does have mate in 4. Oh, I did it wrong. I took the pawn. This way was mate in 4. That's my fault. Okay. So they're not even going to take my queen. They're going to do that. I have to go here. Then they're going to take my queen. Oh, and I'm in trouble. It doesn't matter what I do. It's mate in 2. Look at all that. I can move b4, d4, e5. Doesn't matter. I can go there, and it doesn't matter because they're going to go bishop to d3 check. And the only move I have is here. That's mate. Okay. I was supposed to be able to see all that, so I would know that rook to h8 was my best move. Well, I didn't know all that, and I'm not sure that I can see that far ahead just yet, but maybe I eventually will. Well, the good thing about these puzzles, as I've mentioned several times, is that you have very few choices of pieces to move, because that pawn can't move at all. My king can't move here or here because of the bishop, and obviously I can't move into my own pieces, and I wouldn't want to move away. I don't think I would want to move away from my own pieces, because then they would just take that pawn, which I probably am going to want some at some point. I don't think I want to move this one because they can take it now. My knight's fairly limited. Can't go here or here. I could go back there, but I'm not sure what that's doing. It's not threatening a check or anything. Could go here. Again, what's that threatening? Now, one attractive thing about d5 is that it does cover all those squares where the bishop might like to go. Don't want to go there because their knight's guarding that square. I have to watch out for their pawn, which is about to promote. I have another piece guarding the promotion square. Both of these pieces are guarding the promotion square. I could put the knight there, and then I don't have to worry about that pawn anymore. That's one option. Or the bishop, for that matter. It is a light-colored promotion square, so their bishop can't see it. My bishop can. So I do like that. I also like that their knight can't come here because of where my bishop is. What do they play if I put my knight there? Because they could come here, but that doesn't point at the right square. All it does is keep my knight from going back to there. What do they play if I put my bishop here? The thing about putting my bishop there is that they can eventually get their knight here and threaten my bishop. But if I put my knight there and they try to come around here to threaten my knight, well, I'll just take it with my knight because knights can move in the same way as other knights. So I'm leaning strongly toward that, but I really am not sure. Another good point about this move here, knight to d5, is that it protects this pawn push, which may or may not be a good idea. But I am thinking it might have something to do with this pawn push, just not yet. I can put the bishop here, which points through this diagonal, and it blocks the pawn from promoting. Then I can move the knight here, which protects the pawn push, and then I can push the pawn. Wait, what? What am I talking about? Oh, yeah, go here, then push the pawn. Don't care if they take it, because that would be checkmate. Wait, I don't need the bishop there. Doesn't matter if the bishop's there. I can push this pawn. Doesn't matter if they take it because that's checkmate. I added an extra step in there. Okay, so what do they do if I push this pawn? My king's guarding this pawn. My pawn's guarding that square. My king's guarding that square. And from here, my knight would be guarding that square. So I think all I need to do is push this pawn. If they promote, that's checkmate. If they take this pawn, that's checkmate. Oh, they promoted to a bishop to guard that square. Well, then I'll take the bishop. And that's mate. Took me a little while to get there, but their king was trapped. Once I have this knight here, because the king can't escape that way now. Well, I've gone past the time allotted on my end. This video obviously will be shorter because I edit out my pauses and when I say the same thing 2 or 3 times, usually. But I do appreciate your time. I appreciate all the comments that have been explaining positions to me in my games and giving me ideas. And I appreciate the private messages that some of you have sent to me on chess.com or elsewhere, asking me about my study routine and what I'm doing to get better at chess. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned to several of you, I have a full-time occupation doing things that aren't chess or YouTube. And so that strictly limits the amount of time I have each day to devote to this. I hope that explains. I'm not willing to divulge too much of my private life here in public to everybody, but just rest assured I have a lot of stuff to do, including being a parent of 2 children and a spouse of a very nice spouse that I don't want to upset by spending my entire day poring through chess books or analyzing positions or turning into a crazy person who's obsessed with this. So that is limiting my growth. I do understand that. Also, I know that some of the time that I could be devoting to chess, I am spending making or editing these videos. And so that's kind of a catch-22. If I spend that time instead studying chess, there's going to be less videos, or they're going to be poorly edited or not edited at all. So anyway, these are things that are rolling through my mind as I continue to try to get better at chess. I think I did pretty well today on these puzzles, and the links to the puzzles will be in the description in case you're curious. But back to what I was saying about my time and how I spend it to improve at chess, I am thinking about those things, and I do appreciate all the comments and the questions and the suggestions. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.